Okay. Well, welcome to the Design Review Board. We'll call the meeting to order. Have roll call.
Roll call. We have Board Member Patel and Board Member Helzer are absent, but with 3 in attendance, we do have a quorum to move forward and act on our agenda. And I can confirm that the packet was properly posted and the required notice of today's meeting has been provided, so we can move ahead on today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. First thing then we have here is approval of the minutes from the March 12th, 2020 regular meeting. Do we have any additions, corrections, changes on those? And if not, I'll take a motion to approve them whenever you've had a chance to finish reviewing.
I move that we approve the March meeting minutes.
Okay. Carla,
Second.
and moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Next, we have the minutes from the June 11th meeting, 2020 regular meeting. Any comments, questions, corrections?
Those are a little longer to look through, so
Yeah. Yeah, if you need time, take. If you've had a chance to review, I'll accept a motion.
I move we approve the June 11th meeting minutes.
Okay, Maggie approves it. Carla seconds it. Very good. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Unanimous. All right, thank you. We're down to new business, application CC 20-5. So,
thank you, Chair. This is an application filed by Mr. Scott Guest on behalf of the property owner, which is the Kathleen A. Leckband Trust Number 1 and Susan K. Guest Trust. They are the owners of the building. The request is for approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow some renovations of the existing storefront facade on a building that is located on Santa Fe Avenue, and the specific location is the south half of Lot 115 on Santa Fe Avenue in the original town of Salina. And this is a case where the lot number 115 matches up with the address, which is 115 South Santa Fe. We provided you with a little bit of history on this building as we were able to determine. Our records show that the original building dates back to 1878 and that it was originally the home of a retail store. Records show that the original exterior building materials were glazed brick, wood with some metal. This is a half lot, so the storefront is 25 feet wide, and the original 2-story building was 90 feet deep on a 120-foot lot. And then there was a 10 by 20 foot 1-story wing at the rear. And in 1973, there was an addition put on that made that the full 25-foot width, and that addition is 1 story in height. We indicated that there was a loft apartment constructed on the 2nd floor in 1998. It appears that the original construction to install a loft was begun in 1996, but it wasn't until 1998 that everything was completed and it was allowed to be occupied. The other thing we would note is just that there was a historic resource inventory that was done for the city, and this building was identified as a significant historic resource. And so what that means is that it's protected from demolition without review and approval by the Heritage Commission, but that designation doesn't have any special requirements that deal with changes to the exterior to the building or additions or uses or anything. It only deals with demolition. As we look back in time, for an extended period of time, this building was used as a restaurant, and probably the one that was there for the longest duration was the Hurry Back Cafe, and the Hurry Back Cafe is the one that put the larger addition on the back of the building. Most recently, as you can tell from the window sign, this was used as offices for Angel Square, which was a social services agency. As we understand it, the plan is to renovate and create office space inside this building, with phase 1 being the interior renovations, and phase 2 involves the rehabilitation and renovation of the exterior of the building, on both the front and the rear. And so I think we have a before and after. Destin, the plan is to change the color palette of the painted brick from white to black. And some of the other changes are to freshen up existing worn painted areas, paint window trim, paint all green brick to match the black color, and on the rear facade to look at damaged concrete and stucco and to power wash and repaint in the same color. As the Design Review Board, you are aware that your jurisdiction covers the Downtown Business Improvement District number 1, and as this property is located within that district, this hearing has been scheduled to review the request for conformance with the design guidelines. In addition, it's our understanding the applicant has applied for a facade mini grant through Salina Downtown Inc., and approval of a certificate of compatibility is a prerequisite to be eligible for a facade grant. So you are authorized to approve a certificate of compatibility if a majority of you find that this project complies with the policies and guidelines contained in our design guidelines for downtown. Like a previous case that we had, most of our focus, I think, this afternoon will be on the color. And in regard to color, the guidelines say use colors to create a coordinated color scheme for a building. Use color schemes that are simple. The use of contrasting colors to highlight architectural details in upper facades is encouraged. And then there's also language about the painting of masonry, and we've highlighted that. It's policy F2 on page 4 of your report. And the recommendation is to not cover or obscure original facade materials. Do not paint natural colored masonry. However, if masonry was painted historically, then it may be appropriate to repaint. And so the two things that staff has identified here is looking back at the historic resources inventory, that the inventory made an emphasis on the green and white tile on the building was a significant architectural feature, at least at the time that the resource study was done, which was 1985. In looking at the photos and examining this, staff was not able to determine where the location of that green and white tile that was identified is located on the front facade. So one thing we'd like to clarify this afternoon is whether that is in fact still in place on the facade of the building, and if so, what might be done to preserve or protect that tile. The other thing is just to look whether the white painted brick has taken on historical significance of its own that should be preserved. So one of the things we want to point out for the benefit of the board is that as we look at downtown, we look at masonry. Black is generally not a color palette that has been associated with traditional masonry. The Design Review Board denied a certificate of compatibility to paint the beige brick masonry on the eccentricities storefront back in 2015. But we looked at that case and this case, and there are two distinctions between that building and this one. In that case, the building was a natural beige brick that had never been painted, and that's not the case with this building. The other difference was that proposal was to paint essentially the entire facade black with no contrast, no trim. So hopefully before today's meeting, you did look at the surrounding buildings along this block face, and you can make a determination whether the change in color from white to black would be compatible with the appearance of nearby buildings. We have provided some suggested findings for you on page 4. If we can clarify the situation with the tile, we didn't see that any of the changes were going to remove or damage any significant character defining features. The masonry on this building was painted historically, and this is a proposal to repaint already painted surfaces. Only a portion of the lower story facade and upper story trim will be painted black. From our vantage, the proposed black color scheme is compatible with the buildings directly to the south on the east side of Santa Fe. So your options this afternoon would be to approve a certificate of compatibility if you find that these modifications conform with our design guidelines. You could approve a certificate with any conditions or modifications you think are appropriate. You could postpone consideration of this application if we need to acquire additional information. And you have the option of denying the application as presented if you make findings of fact to support that denial. Following your review and any additional information presented, our recommendation would be option 2, and that if there are any significant changes to the proposed renovations as you approve them, that we would be notified and determine either whether we can approve those changes or bring it back to you for further review. So with that, I think staff's 2 points of emphasis is we looked back at the historic files here, and it identified the green and white tile as a significant part of the character of the building, and we were not able to identify where that was or if it was still there or whether it's still relevant. And then we just wanted to have you focus on the question of whether the white painted brick has taken on a significance of its own, and whether you think the black color change is compatible with nearby buildings. So with that, I'd open any questions that you have. We do have a representative of the building owner here if you have questions of them.
So the brick, the dark colored brick up around the windows, is that painted already? Or is that yeah.
You're
Or is
referring to this?
That's not the green glaze then?
I don't know if that,
I kind of had thought that was, but maybe I
I thought the same, I thought that was the green tile.
that's the green, yeah.
okay. So the nomination form for that was done in the historic resources. It said that the most significant architectural feature of the building was the green and white tile.
Yeah.
And so apparently that that would be referring to these
Okay.
items here.
And that's what's wanted to be painted black, portion of that, or is the green?
That is, as I read the description, it was paint all green brick
Okay.
to match the black color. And I think maybe that was what raised the question, if that was determined to be green brick. It was identified in the earlier inventory of the building as referred to it as green and white tile. So I guess I don't know if that's a significant distinction, that in one place it's referred to as tile, and the application it's referred to as as green, as painting the green brick to match the black color.
Dustin, can you zoom in any more on that?
That's it. With my not particularly sharp eyesight, I was not able to just look at that and determine, say, oh, that's tile and not brick, so. But that, logically, that would make the most sense, that what was referred to as green and white in the inventory, that's the only part that still seems to have a green.
You can kind of see a little
palette.
green in that, up that area. A few bricks are a little greener than others, if that's color's accurate, that is, hard to say that.
So do you want to go to the proposed one, Dustin, just to contrast that? So
Yeah,
So
it's
the
going to be painted
proposal
black.
is to take what is currently has a green hue to it, which is referred to in the application as brick, to match the black color. But I confess to not being, have good enough eyesight to determine whether that was
Okay.
tile material or actually was brick.
And
And the only thing that would make me think it was brick is at the very top there where it's spalling. The spalled pieces are very similar to the spalled pieces of brick. And they are brick size.
Yeah, and
I'm like you, I can't
the
tell.
problem I was having was that the material that I was reviewing didn't identify where, didn't say it was by the doorway or didn't at lower level. It just referred to green and white tile, and
so,
I was not able to detect that the green and white tile was still there as an architectural feature. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because it could have been removed or covered over at some previous time, but I was just calling that out because when I reviewed, when they do those historic inventories, in their reports, they indicate what aspects of the building they think are architecturally significant, and that's the thing that they identified, so.
because the rest, that's white painted brick.
Yes.
Right?
And the building itself is a vernacular style, so it's a fairly common style from that era, so it's not, notably distinct from other buildings in the downtown area. So the inventory report said it was a vernacular style, and the only distinctive architectural feature was the green and white tile, but I could not identify where that green and white tile was located. So
Go ahead. Yeah,
it appeared to me that maybe it wasn't there anymore, so.
Okay. Would you like to step up, Doctor?
Maybe you've got some more insight.
Go ahead and identify yourself. And then
Yes, I'm Ken Guest, 888 Barlow Court, Salina. Thank you for letting me talk. Actually, I'm here as trustee, one of the trustees, my wife and I, trustees of the trust, which owns the building at 115 South Santa Fe, and we've leased it to my son, Scott, and he's the one making the application. And actually, I'm here just to say that, we agree with what Scott wants to do, of course, based on what you folks recommend is appropriate to downtown, because we're all interested in maintaining our downtown. But that's about it. And I do appreciate the history. It's nice to know more about the building that I own.
as the property owner representative, anyways, do you remember, is that green brick?
I have no idea. Gary.
Okay.
No.
And then the part down below, right above the windows, there, that white area, is that just going to be left like I just painted black as far as you know, right? Okay. No changes other than painting, okay.
Right.
And unlike the case we had, I think, with the Weedle Financial Group, in that case, we had a clear evidence in the building permit file of changes that occurred to that building in 1955. And as I looked through this, I was not able to identify anything other than the addition that was put on the back and the addition of a loft on the second floor, which I assume will stay Or is the loft currently an occupied loft, or is it?
I don't think, yes, it is, and I don't think he's planning on any changes to the structure at all. But I've been taking notes furiously to tell him what's going on and what the options are, so
Okay,
thank you for your consideration.
okay, thank you.
So if you want to flip to the proposed one again, Dustin, then we can just kind of do the contrast. But you can see that the application of the black color is primarily around the storefront, and then the trim, if that is in fact you perceive it to be green, the proposal is that it would be painted black as well, but not to change the material, but just to change the color.
Just another thought about that odd tile/green brick. I think it would be very rare that they would have had the green tile in the exact same size as a standard brick. And it looks like it is actually offset a half an inch or an inch, which would have been very difficult to achieve as a tile. So just the more I look at it, the more I think it is painted brick. But it's hard, I mean. And in reference to the black and white color scheme, we did just approve the black and white color scheme for Wheatles, which is across the street and down the ways. So there are other buildings in that area that have a similar color scheme.
Yeah, and the building, I don't know if you had the streetscape there, Dustin, but I did note that two buildings to the south had awnings and things where they weren't necessarily painted, but there was quite a bit of black associated with the two buildings to the south that had new awnings. And so while it's not a traditional color for masonry, given its surroundings, the black would blend in with the buildings to the south that have the black awning.
Okay, well, I will say if that's actually the green glaze, I prefer that, but it meets the guidelines. So I'm not, it's just my own personal opinion. So, but I think it meets the guidelines and fits in with the area. And like I said, I'm not positive. I just kind of remember that being a green glaze look, but it must not be. So, all right, well.
Maybe it's the angle of the light or the sun of when the picture's taken, but
Could be glazed
all I wanted to
That's
do
what I
was
was-
report back to you that our guidelines recommend preservation of character defining features. As a staff, we couldn't identify that green and white tile was still present. And so I can't say staff does not believe we're eliminating any character defining
I mean-
features, which then just comes down to the question whether you think the black palette is an appropriate palette for that location.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Any further comments, questions, discussion? Would someone like to make a motion on approval or non-approval, or?
I would make a motion that we approve the certificate of compatibility as presented today, and if there are any significant changes to the proposal, that it be brought back before our board to be approved.
Okay,
I second
and
that.
Carla seconds it. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, then?
Motion passes. For Scott's benefit, we'll send out a letter summarizing today's meeting that he can provide to SDI as his documentation that he has approval for the facade change and for his eligibility for the grant. So we'll provide that in writing.
Okay, back to the agenda. It appears we have no administrative items or preliminary discussion items. We have some unfinished business, it says. Did you not find our previous election in the?
Well, we went back through, and it is as we reported that Mr. Hyder had his last meeting in January, and the board met once in February, and it met once in March, and at neither meeting was any action taken to fill that
Okay.
vacancy.
Must have got missed from the minutes, but we can do it again, no big deal. But we all remember doing it. But that's okay, we can do it again. So, well, is this, when's,
If you have memory of what occurred before, then it would just make sense to do that because we're only doing this to the, through the end of people's terms at the end of August.
August, so it's just like one
But,
more
you
meeting?
know, one of the indications to us was just that the, on our roster for the board, we didn't have anybody identified as chair, and we,
Well,
what occurred was that John was here for the March 12th minutes and then, or meeting, and then for a long time, we were unable to find the DVD from the meeting to actually prepare minutes for you, and that's why the March 12th minutes were on
Yeah.
today.
Right.
But if you all have a good memory of what you think occurred before, then if you duplicate it here, we'll get it in the minutes, and then it won't be lost.
do you remember?
No.
No, you don't? Okay.
Sorry.
So you,
I don't.
Yeah, it's all right. I
remember nominating you as chair.
Yeah.
I do
chair.
remember that.
And wasn't Mukesh?
Yeah.
Mukesh was vice chair.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure, but why don't we just do it again if that makes it more palatable?
if you want
Vote
to,
for
if you want to
people if they're not
duplicate
here.
that, we'll make sure that there's a
Good
record,
point.
because,
Is there a problem with voting for somebody that's not here to accept or not?
no.
Okay.
Fairly common, they find out later what happened, because.
I mean, I guess it's just for one meeting, then we'll do it
Right.
again in
Yep.
September, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it's gonna,
So-
there'll be a change.
All right.
But it's mostly just so there's a record of who, we can report that the board in fact has a chair and this is who it is. And like I said, you all may know, it's just that we don't, so.
that's fine.
Right,
I mean,
right. Okay, I move that we elect Gary Martins as chair and Mukesh Patel as vice chair until September 2020.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion then? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Unanimous? And there we have it.
Not be surprised, Mr. Patel might be, but.
Yeah. All right, well then,
I have one other business item, just to, now that we have a chair, and I can ask the chair and the other members here, but I've had a request I received this morning for the board to hold a special meeting on June 23rd, which is, in one way, it's not a special meeting, because if we hadn't changed our meeting, did I say June? I meant to
Yeah,
say
but
July.
July 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah, July,
I'm still
okay.
stuck in June. July 23rd would, on our original meeting schedule, would have been a normal meeting day, but we've gone down to meeting once a month, and I had a request for a project that has a tight schedule related to this Salina 2020 work going on downtown. If the board would be willing to hold what would be considered a special meeting on the 23rd of July, which would be 2 weeks from today.
I will note that I cannot be here then. I'm having knee replacement 2 days before that, so as long as you can get your quorum otherwise, that's great.
Yeah,
I
then,
can meet.
okay. Would that be workable for you, Maggie?
I think so.
Okay, then we just have to get Mukesh or Haley here. But the bylaws say that special meetings can be held with the consent of the chair, so we're seeking your
I approve.
consent. Okay. So what we will do is we'll report back to him that you have agreed to meet on that date. We have the room reserved anyway because the calendar didn't change, but technically it's a special meeting because we published a new schedule. So I will report back, and then the building address is 141, 143, 145 South Santa Fe. And so maybe you all have a better visual of where
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
is.
that's the,
it's the dance
the
studio
fencing
and
studio.
had been the fencing and dance studio.
Okay, so it's an interior renovation, but there's also some facade changes involved, and they don't want to, we've in some cases, it works where the interior work moves ahead and the exterior work comes later, but in this case, they didn't want to have a delay in the ability to work on the outside, so they requested a special meeting, and with your consent, we will schedule that for 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
And I'll try to remember that it's July now.
All right then, and I see there's no one here for the public forum, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn our July 9th meeting.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. All right. Adjourned.